Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome back to class. Well, we're down to the last 2 weeks, so it's kind of on the home stretch now. I feel like. We are moving into an application side of all of this that we've been talking about for holism, and I think in some ways that's a little bit of a challenge. Hopefully, you've been able to recognize how holism can be applied to nearly everything that we do. But at the same time, it's still hard to wrap our heads around the abstractness of holism and say, how does that really apply to what I'm doing in my job? So this is where we're going to head in this week and at least attempt to do this and see how it turns out. So I felt like, the way the course is set up is that this is based on, personal health and well-being for ourselves as individuals, but at the same time for our leadership style also, and, working with other people too, to move them towards an idea of better health and well-being. So it seemed to make sense to look at this in the perspective of a health and wellness program. This idea of holism anyway, and its application. So what our job is for this week, as you have likely noticed, is that we back in 2008 at Creighton, we started a program for our employees who were at a higher risk for cardiovascular disease. Just the long story short is Creighton is a self-insured organization, and one of our greatest costs as an organization from a health perspective was the risks and outcomes of cardiovascular disease. So we decided to put together a program for our employees who are at the highest risk to mitigate those risks and prevent those in other folks who didn't quite have the risk yet. So we developed an employee health program that we called at the time the Cardiovascular and Diabetes Risk Reduction Program. Really long name. It said exactly pretty much what we were doing, but it was kind of a long name. So we have since changed the name to the Lifestyle Medicine Clinic at Creighton University. And so you'll see that in our readings this week is the language from both of those. So essentially what we did was we asked for volunteers. This is a completely volunteer program from the community, the Creighton employee community, to see if they wanted to participate in a program that would help lessen their risk for developing cardiovascular disease or worsening their existing cardiovascular disease. So we did what we felt like were wraparound services for that as an endpoint. An end goal in mind, and the employees could be in the program for as long as they liked to be. There was no end date to it, and I sometimes use it in past tense like I'm doing now, but the program still exists and it's still going strong. So anyway, what I have for you to read are some of the publications some of the research and publications that we've produced from that particular program, and what I would like for you to do is look from the eye of holism when you read those publications. So what it's going to do is give you an overview in some of them, and then very specific details in others about what that program entails. And hopefully the idea of having you read all of that stuff is that you get a good picture of what this program is about. So then what I'd like for you to do is, we've talked about so many things relative to holism, but how does that, again, the theme of the week is, how does that apply to my everyday life? So I felt like it may be a good opportunity from, a health and wellness side, of course, to use a health and wellness program. But from a leadership side to say, okay, if I'm going to develop a program from a leadership standpoint, and I want to have holism as my theme or something that is really important to the program, how would I do that, and what components would I need? And so, of course, remember this program was developed in 2008 And I think from the beginning, the idea was for it to be a relatively comprehensive program with the Jesuit charism of cura personalis, or care for the whole person, or personal care, as an underpinning for what we were doing there. So it was individualized to the holism, wholeness that an individual employee needed in order to improve their risks for cardiovascular disease. But at the same time, it's not a perfect program, and so I could go through that, and of course we have gone through the program and say, we're falling short in this area. Feel like this one is working well, but this part is not, and maybe we need to make some changes. So I would like for you to do the same. That's your task for this week. Now, okay, so for just on the side of, wow, that's a lot of reading. Yeah, that is a lot of reading. So what I'd like for you to do, for our assignment this week, what I'd like for you to do is, or at least I would, maybe hope that you, unless you're really interested in what we're doing there, I would probably read it from the eye of getting the main points of what's going on here for those particular articles that are published, so that you have at least a good handle on what the outcomes are, what the measurements are, what the intent from the employee perspective, what the intent from the employer perspective is. So that's kind of what I'd hope for you to get from this. So by that, I'm saying, it could take you probably a long time to read all this stuff if you read it in complete, detail and had to, go through and study all of it. And I would recommend not doing that. That would take probably a lot of time and get beyond the scope of what we're trying to, I think, accomplish this week. So the point is to get a good enough handle on what that program is about, and look at it from the eye of holism, as we've been talking about it in the course, and then to do some critiquing of it and say, this is what seems to be good in the program, but this is what also seems to be falling short, and perhaps then suggest some ways to improve that program. I think that would be a great application of the knowledge of what we've been doing this course. And then, hopefully that can carry over into your thought patterns for other things within your life, perhaps the job that you're working in now, and how could I make what I'm doing in my place of employment move in a way towards holism. Because as we hopefully are getting the idea, holism is a very personal thing, and we can look at ourselves and our, individualness and how we are developing as a person towards holism. But, as we've said many times, we're not whole unless we realize that we're part of something larger, a larger wholeness. And so how do I fit into that? How does what I'm doing as a job fit into that larger conversation of holism? And so I think what I'm hoping we can do in the last couple weeks of this course is have you do a bit of personal exploration in that way. I've got this assignment for this week, but hopefully this takes you in a direction where you can critique then or reflect, if you want to use that word, on what your own personal situation is from a more of a what you're doing for a job or family or personal life situation. So looking at the whole of everything. So it's probably not the greatest, this assignment is probably not the most perfect way to do something like this as an application, but I feel like it's good enough to get an idea. It's something that I've got access to as far as the data and the background of the program and all that business, so we can critique it from that standpoint because I've got the information for you to read and review in that way. But knowing that and knowing that there's more to all of this, that you can take this further into something that matters for you in your own life, I think is important. So then the other assignment for this week is to go out to the literature and find something that is published. I mean, we're talking just one article that's published on a program that is geared towards health and wellness for employees or for a work setting, a group-based setting, I guess I should say it that way. So not, where someone's got this individual plan for an individual person, but something that's perhaps implemented at an employee health setting or some larger area. It could be, even a program, say like maybe a YMCA would implement for folks who have diabetes or something like that would also be an example of a group-based program. So your task then is to go out and look for a published paper and something like that and do a critique of that as well. We have a discussion board this week that will look at the risk reduction program from Creighton's side. And then you've got a paper to turn in that is not a reflection paper that we've been doing in the past, but it is a critique of a group health and wellness program, as I just mentioned. So those are the assignments for this week, and hopefully that gives us some type of application, at least one aspect of it anyway, of what we're up to in this course. So then we move forward into the final week of the course, and of course I'll have a video for that for next week. But we're soonly wrapping this thing up, and so hopefully this is all starting to gel together, and my video for the final week of class will hopefully bring it all together into one succinct way of telling the story of holism, at least in the context of this course. So if you have any questions, as usual, reach out, let me know. Otherwise, I'll look forward to reading all your good stuff in the days to come. Thanks.